So there's been a big debate in the archery world for the past couple of years about which broadhead is the best. Now, one of the main problems with this debate is that there's so much opinion and personal anecdotes and just a few facts and studies sprinkled in. It's really hard for someone who genuinely wants to know which broadhead they should be shooting to really decipher what the right answer is. So you hear all these stories of people who have shot the same broadhead for 30 years and they've never had a problem, and so that's what you should shoot too. Then you'll hear all these other stories of people who have gone through all the trial and error. You know, they've tried all kinds of different things, they've done all the tests, they've read the studies, they've tried everything, and this is the best broadhead for them, so that's what you should shoot too. And you know, if you asked 100 different people which broadhead you should be shooting, you'd probably get about 100 different answers. And on top of that, you'd probably get about 100 different reasons why that's the broadhead you should be shooting. So today, I'm not really here to tell you which broadhead you should use. I'm no expert. I don't have all the answers. That's not really for me to decide. I think everybody should do their own research, try things out for themselves, and figure out what's going to work best for them. But today, I'm just here to talk about a new broadhead that recently came out that if you went through and looked at a bunch of studies and asked a bunch of experts, they probably would point you in the direction of this style of broadhead, because there is a lot of evidence to suggest that it might be the best. So this style of broadhead is the single bevel broadhead. Now that type of broadhead has gotten a lot of attention over the past couple of years as they've become more and more popular, and people have started to go away from more of the mechanical broadheads, get into the fixed blades, and then really try to refine which fixed blades are the best to be shooting. So in all of that happening over the past couple of years and various content creators making them more popular, the single bevel broadhead has gotten a lot more popular and has garnered a lot more attention from the general public. One of the problems that I've always found with trying to get into the single bevel broadheads is a lot of the companies that make them only make single bevel broadheads, or they make very few other ones that I've had experience with. So for me to change over to a completely different broadhead making company that I have no experience with, that maybe doesn't make anything else that I've ever used before, or maybe they only make single bevel broadheads, it's really tough for me to make the switch because I just find it kind of difficult to trust. And on top of that, a lot of these single bevel broadheads are really expensive. And if you have something that has worked for you in the past and you got a couple of them laying around and you can go get a refill at Fleet Farm and it's relatively cheap, why spend all that money on a new set of broadheads that you don't know if it's going to work and you probably got to pay for shipping? Why switch? But recently there's a broadhead company that came out with their own version of the single bevel broadhead. And this is a company that we've worked with in the past, company that we have taken their broadheads and literally put them through the ringer, put them through a bunch of different tests, and we were very impressed with how they held up. And now they've come out with their own single bevel broadhead, and on top of that, they're relatively cheap, all things considered. So when I saw that, I knew that I probably had to get some and try them out for myself. So of course, I'm talking about the Tooth of the Arrow single bevel broadheads. These just came out within the past couple of weeks, so they're very, very new. So full disclaimer, I haven't shot these at an animal yet. I have no idea how well they're gonna work going through a deer. Like I said earlier, that's really not for me to try to convince you that this is what you should be shooting. I'm just here to tell you about it and go over a few of the things that I've noticed, a few of the thoughts that I've had since actually buying these. So here's a bit of a closer look for you at the Tooth of the Arrow single bevel broadhead. This is the 1-inch broadhead, so it's 1 inch from tip to tip on that side, which is relatively small. A lot of big manufacturers, like let's say Rage, have advertised really big broadheads, like 2 inches or 2.5 inches. I think the Mega Meat is 2.5 inches, which gives you a huge cutting surface, but it can also really reduce penetration because there's so much extra drag on those blades. You might not get a full pass through if you have that much of a cutting surface. So a few of the details on these from the company is they're made 100% in America with American materials. So for a lot of people, that is a really important factor. So there's also no moving parts to these, and they're 100% machined from a bar of high grade carbon steel. So it's all one chunk of steel that makes these blades. There's no moving parts, there's nothing glued together. It's all just one piece, which we saw when we tested some other tooth of the arrow broadheads, really added to the durability. There's really no room for failure. There's nothing to break. There's no moving parts. It's all one piece. It's extremely durable. So this is also their Tonto tip, and it has blades that are kind of on the thicker side as far as blades go. And these features are designed specifically to split bone. Now, nobody here at Buck Fever Outdoors is going to try to advocate for you to be shooting through shoulder blades. We're not going to do that. We don't think it's the right thing to do, but we realize that things happen, right? You're going to make a bad shot at some point in your life. You're probably going to hit a shoulder at some point in your life. And the worst thing that you could do is wound an animal and, not find it. Maybe it dies and you still don't find it because there's no blood. It's a horrible mess, and nobody wants to do that. But if you have a broadhead that is going to punch through that bone and hit the vitals behind that shoulder blade and kill the deer efficiently and effectively and quickly, now you really increase your chances of being able to find that deer and actually harvest it rather than wound it or end up killing it but not being able to find it. So one thing I'm always curious about when I buy broadheads is how consistent are they? How close are they to what I ordered? So these are 125 grain broadheads, and so the first thing I wanted to do was weigh them. So I weighed all three of them, and they ended up all being 124 grains. So one thing there is that's a great consistency. I mean, they're all the same thing. Honestly, I don't really care if they're 125, 130, 120. I don't really care as long as they're all three the same. That makes it much easier to tune my bow and trust that they're all going to be shooting the same way. So with these all being 1 grain shy of 125, they're all 124. I can totally live with that. If anything, that could be my scale. Maybe it's not the most accurate ever, but it's at least showing that they're all very close to 125 and they're all the same. So all of these factors are great, but it's not necessarily enough to convince me to switch to shooting these broadheads. There's a lot of broadheads out there that are very consistent and weigh what they should weigh. There's a lot of broadheads out there that have sharp blades that are made to punch through bone. There's a lot of broadheads out there that kill deer every single year. But for me, what makes these broadheads intriguing is the single bevel technology. And that's something we haven't talked about a ton because I told you I wasn't going to try to convince you to use these broadheads. But it is worth pointing out one of the main features that makes these broadheads so great is the single bevel. So what that means is the blade is cut in such a way that it's really only sharp on one side or the other. Rather than having a blade with the peak right in the middle that's sharpened to both sides, this is sharpened all the way to one side or the other. Specifically, these are sharpened to the right side. So what that does is it encourages rotation when the broadhead enters the chest cavity. And that's where we see a more devastating wound channel. With only being a 1-inch broadhead, it still is going to open up a big wound channel inside there because once it enters, it's going to rotate inside of there, and that's all because of the way that these blades are cut. So with that rotation, obviously comes really devastating wound channels, but on top of that, it increases penetration. And now you can see that's why these single bevel broadheads solve a lot of problems. With certain mechanical broadheads, even certain fixed blade broadheads, you might have so much blade on there that you're not going to get the penetration, you won't get a full pass through. And if you don't get a full pass through, that can really diminish your chances of being able to find that deer. Not to mention, if you shoot a deer in the shoulder blade and you don't penetrate beyond that, there's almost a 0% chance that you're going to recover it. So when you have a broadhead that's made to punch through bone and get really deep penetration, it gives you a lot more forgiveness in where you can actually shoot that deer. So in this case, if you hit a deer in the shoulder blade, it's not the end of the world. This broadhead is designed to punch through it and keep rotating beyond that to give you really deep penetration and kind of save you a little bit when the shot isn't always where you want it to be. So like I said, I'm not going to try to convince you of what broadhead you should be shooting. That's up for you to decide and for you to do your own research. But in a lot of the research that I've done, I found that these single bevel broadheads tend to be some of the top performers and are generally some of the best broadheads on the market. So if you're someone who's been in the market for some single bevel broadheads, but you just haven't found any that you've fallen in love with, or or you don't want to bite the bullet and pay that huge price tag, these Tooth of the Arrow single bevel broadheads might be the ones for you. And like I said, we have tested some Tooth of the Arrow broadheads before, so if you're interested in checking that out, we do have a link to that video in the description below, where you can see how the Tooth of the Arrow stacks up against the Rage Tri-Pan. And if you do end up deciding that you want to give these a try, or you want to try any of the broadheads that Tooth of the Arrow has to offer, we do have a code that's linked in the description of this video that will give you $10 off a 3-pack of these broadheads, and it does help us out a little bit as well. So once again, I haven't shot these at a deer yet. I don't know what they're gonna be like. I just know what my research has led me to, and I think that these are gonna be some really, really great broadheads. So if you're in the same boat and you wanna try the single bevels out, but you're looking for some that are a little bit on the cheaper side, you can get yourself an extra $10 off by ordering these and using the link that we have in the description below, and it'll give us a little bit of a kickback, which we really appreciate. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content to come. Deer season is right around the corner, and we are going to be hunting like crazy this year, trying to bring you guys as much content as we possibly can. So if you guys do get the chance to try out these new single bevel broadheads from Tooth of the Arrow, we would love to hear your feedback, and hopefully it brings you nothing but success this fall. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. What's up, guys? We've got a big announcement here for you today. We just dropped some new merch on our website.
Had this idea for quite a while, finally got it onto a shirt and sweatshirt and stuff, so we're pretty excited to show you guys. If you head over to our website at buckfeveroutdoors.com, you can go get yourself some just in time for season.
Yeah, so this was a totally original design, way different from a lot of the stuff that we've previously come up with, but I really like it. We've got all the standard options we've always offered with the t-shirt and the hoodie, and this time we even have a crew neck for you guys, because I know a lot of you have been asking for a crew neck, so we finally have that for you. I love the blaze orange for gun season. I think that's going to be awesome. And the green and the tan and a bunch of other colors for deer camp, so I'm super pumped about it. And I think you guys should head on over to our website, buckfeveroutdoors.com, check it out, and maybe get yourself some new gear for this hunting season.
So we appreciate you guys watching and checking this out. We hope to have a lot of great content coming up for you guys this fall, and we're pretty excited. Deer season's coming up right around the corner, so like I said, hopefully get a lot of content out for you guys, and stay tuned.